Welcome to the Ringer NFL show. Sheil Kapadia here with Steven Ruiz and Diante Lee. It is the preview show. Week six already. You know what we'll do. We'll talk about the big matchups of the week. We'll go over our picks and we'll recap our contest. Who is getting the slot game of the week this week? We'll let you know in the second segment. Diante, how are we doing, my friend?
As you can see, I cut the hair so that if that gives you any information on how confident I'm feeling going into this week. It's been a lot of sleepless nights trying to prep for our upcoming opponent, but things are good, man.
Ruiz, we got to get some of the gear. I mean, the merch, Diante's got to send us a link. We got to be able to, there's got to be some fundraiser. We can get a couple, hoodies for ourselves and support our guy.
I need him to send me some tape. I need to watch the tape. I need to make sure that he's not on fraud watch. I need to make sure I approve of what he's running before I represent him.
All right, there you go.
Honorable defense. I'll tell you that. We play honorable defense.
There you go. Who else plays honorable defense in these matchups we're about to talk about, or is it people going on fraud watch in week 6? Let's get to it. Fun game, very fun game in the early window here. Diante, you're going to start us off. The Washington Commanders go to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Who would have thought, in 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, that this would be a matchup that everyone would be excited about. But suddenly you got two exciting teams. What are you watching in this matchup?
It's going to be the trenches for me because I think that that's ultimately going to contextualize the way that both quarterbacks play. And I would say the challenge obviously lies a little bit more on Washington's side and whether or not they're going to be able to win up front often enough to make Lamar uncomfortable in the pocket. And then I think more importantly, to keep them from just playing a downhill run game. I think that was actually one of the features of Cincinnati's game plan last week against Baltimore that I came away maybe a little bit more impressed with watching on a down-to-down basis than the stats might have suggested. I would say outside of like the big Derrick Henry run, I actually thought that they played a little bit better between the tackles than I expected, or at least if you're grading on the Cincinnati curve of them being one of the league's worst defenses, I thought they acquitted themselves pretty well. But Washington's in a similar boat, right? Like they play with a lot of light bodies. That's a Dan Quinn specialty. He's going to match up bigger bodies with safeties instead of linebackers and defensive linemen. And I think that there's a place for that in football. I just think that when you're dealing with a team like Baltimore that can change gears and get into quarterback design runs, option runs, they can get under center and give you a bunch of gap scheme and man scheme runs, it's going to be really difficult, I think, for you to play the kind of way that Dan Quinn wants to. And if he can't do that, then ultimately that trickles down into Jayden Daniels being put in situations that we really haven't seen him in over the last 2 to 3 weeks while he's been blowing teams up, right? Because they've been able to play ahead of schedule, ahead of the sticks with the game script advantage for the most part. So that's really where I'm interested to see whether or not Washington can mitigate some problems by winning in the trenches.
I like how Diante said, there's a place for that in football. When he's talking about matching up with safeties instead of linebackers, that's like coach speak for like, I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy or that approach.
Diante might not be doing that with his defense there. No, but it is a measuring stick game for the Commanders. I mean, they're 4-1, and this is the second biggest point spread of any game this season. They go into this game 6.5-point underdogs at Baltimore. Ruiz, what do you got based on what Diante said, or even the other side of the ball?
Yeah, I think when the Commanders have the ball, I really think this is like going to be a shootout where the Commanders are just running up and down the field on this offense, or the Ravens are totally just going to glove up everything they do on early downs. It's really hard to say, but the Ravens have been a good defense on first down. They've been a good rush defense. So we've been talking about this Commanders offense and how they've been ahead of the chains. They've been in a good script for the full season. We really haven't seen them forced to have a plan B since that Tampa Bay game where, I mean, now it feels like that Tampa Bay game is useless information. Like we could just throw that out. That's not the offense that this team is going to be going forward. But I do want to see what happens when they do have their right hand tied behind their back and they're forced to play with their left hand. I think there's a chance we see it in this game. But there's also a chance where they can't contain Jayden Daniels because no defense has been able to contain him. Maybe the run game does get off a little bit. And then maybe we see some of those issues in the secondary where they're giving up big plays when they're trying to be tight to routes because there is talent on this receiving core. And Jayden Daniels does have talent throwing the ball downfield when he throws outside the numbers. So there's a chance that like Terry McLaurin goes off and has a big game in this one. So I really don't know. I think Washington's putting up 35 points or they're putting up 13 and there's like nothing in between.
Yeah, that side of the ball is going to be so much fun when the Commanders have the football. You've mentioned his scrambling before, Ruiz, and even like looking back at that game last week when there's free rushers, it's not always, this is schemed up well on the chalkboard. It's kind of like, all right, he notices the free rusher, makes a miss, and then goes and makes a play. I was looking at his throws outside the pocket this season. He's 16 for 17 for 233 yards. And he's got the highest EPA of any quarterback on scramble. So when he gets out there, whether he is throwing it, whether he is using his legs, a lot of good things are happening. And this is one where you just look at kind of the talent on both sides of the ball and the talent surrounding Jayden Daniels versus the talent on that Ravens defense. I mean, it feels a little bit like a mismatch. So he's going to have to like go into that mode where he's making plays, where he's creating. Cause I do think this is one where stuff's not going to be perfect for him, but man, Diante, he's had answers, whether it's, sustainable or not. I know we've had that discussion, but he's had answers so far for some of this stuff.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest answer is just how fast he is when it comes to escaping pressure. Right? Like you watched the Browns game and there were multiple plays where for 90% of the quarterbacks, they would have had him dead to rights. But he has a twitchiness that I think even his opponent this week, Lamar Jackson, doesn't always have when it comes to just getting to top speed instantly. Right? Like Lamar's, I think, is a little bit shiftier, obviously, than Jayden Daniels is. But when it comes to just getting to top speed, that 0 to 60 ability, he is very unique in that regard. To me, and I think that you were speaking to this a little bit in terms of the matchup, the thing that's really interesting for me with the Commanders when they have the ball is that this is probably the first defense that they've seen that is like specifically built to stop spread offenses. Right. Like I think that what Baltimore does best defensively is the fact that they can put Kyle Hamilton in the slot. And he has the size of a typical Sam backer, but the movement skills of a defensive back. And that's been a real asset for them. And the same with Marlon Humphrey, right? Like he's a guy who as a corner has that, bigger shape, almost strong safety type of build. And I think that helps them a bit when it comes to handling RPOs. We saw Kansas City take advantage of them a little bit because they've kind of perfected that spread run game style. And because Patrick Mahomes can work from different arm angles, it can really manipulate you defensively. I don't know if the Commanders' offense is built in the same way that the Chiefs' offense is, because so much of what we saw when Baltimore struggled with stop and spread run game week one comes down to the fact that Patrick Mahomes can get them into any look that they want. Right. And that those are common opponents. They see each other a bunch and those two teams kind of know how to manipulate one another. This is going to be the first time I think that Jayden Daniels is going to see some unregulated looks, right? Some unscouted looks on early downs to really see if they can confuse him and cause enough hesitation to where they can kind of show a crowd around him. Because if you just let this guy play out on the perimeter or he gets an opportunity to attack the edge, it doesn't really matter who they've got chasing this guy. I would say Roquan Smith included. If he gets an opportunity to get a two-way go on a defender, I expect him to win. And I think that that's going to be a big deal for Baltimore, is showing a crowd with their spread run looks or spread run defensive looks to be able to, kind of cause that confusion to see if they can get some run stuffs on early downs.
And I feel like we saw some of that against the Bills, like especially in the pass game when they were trying to kind of keep Josh Allen in the pocket or not let him get outside of the pocket and create havoc for their defense. They've only allowed 6 scrambles all season, and they've played Patrick Mahomes. They played Josh Allen. Those are two of the most effective scramblers, especially situational wise. And then they played Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott, two guys that aren't scramblers, but two guys that will certainly take off and run if they have space to do it. So this is kind of like a strength on strength situation when the Commanders have the ball. But like Diante said, they haven't faced anyone that could just get outside the pocket. It's like he could throw a smoke bomb and just be somewhere else in an instant. It's almost like Nightcrawler from X-Men. I don't know if you remember that scene from X2, that first scene. That's how he runs. That's how he disappears from the pocket. So yeah, fascinating to watch. But I do think this is the question this is the game where we get the full measure of this Commanders offense. I don't think there's going to be, the debate won't be as heated between me and you, Sheil. I think we'll have a firmer answer and we'll know and have an idea of what to expect from this team going forward for the next 10 games left in the season.
All right, then I'm just going to get out ahead of it and give myself an excuse for, what potentially could be the thing. I mean, he is a rookie. They should struggle in this game. The surprise would be if the Commanders come out and if they're getting in the mid 20s or 30 points against this Ravens defense. I mean, that to me would be pretty surprising for a rookie quarterback to do that on the road in a spot like this. So I'm already setting myself up, Ruiz. See, that's a veteran move. You do it to show before, then the show comes. They say, I told you on Friday, he should struggle in this game. But if they win this game, I was looking at the NFC East odds here earlier today, and the Eagles are still the favorites, but the Commanders have actually leaped the Cowboys, and they're second most likely, according to the betting markets, to win the NFC East. And just so that we make sure we don't take Lamar Jackson too much for granted, I was looking at some of his stuff that we know what we saw last week, maybe the best game a quarterback has played all season. Right now, his EPA per pass play is better than it was last year when he won the MVP. It's fifth among quarterbacks. And by the way, he's eighth in the entire NFL in rushing yards. Not among quarterbacks, Rush. I'm telling you, but Saquon, Barkley, whoever you want, eighth in rushing yards. What a start to come back from that MVP season last year. They lose their first two games. And not that those were on him, but man, since then, it's just been they've had statistically DVOA the best offense in the NFL. So you're right, Ruiz. I don't have a great feel for it. I do feel like there are going to be times where you're going to be like, oh, Washington's moving the football, but the Commanders might not get a stop all game in this one. So fun to watch. Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels. I am pumped for that game. Commanders at the Ravens. All right, next game. We go to the late window. Lions at Cowboys. This is, do you remember where you were during this game last season? I do. I was at a hotel room at Legoland on a Saturday night with the kids trying to sleep. And I'm going, wait, was he eligible? Was he not eligible in that classic Lions Cowboys late in the season? And to me, the question here is pretty simple. Does the Cowboys defense have enough to keep them in this? I mean, you look at where these teams are coming from right now. I'm not going to give the Cowboys too much credit for what they did against that Steelers offense last week. They are down, as of this recording, they're starting 4 defensive ends basically from the preseason, where Sam Williams went down, DeMarcus Lawrence went down, Micah Parsons, and then Marshawn Nealon was the other guy who he got injured last week. And then you've got this Lions offense where I feel like they're even more true to their identity this year than they were last year. When they're in a spot in a shaky game, they're just like, we're running the football until you're going to stop us. And now they get Frank Ragnow, their center back healthy. They're coming off the bye. I just have a hard time imagining a scenario where the Cowboys are able to stop this run game with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So I feel like the Lions have a great opportunity in this game. We can talk about the other side of the ball in a second. But Ruiz, this Lions run game and this Lions offense against that Cowboys run defense and that Cowboys defense overall, I mean, that is a huge, huge mismatch going into the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now. Outside the run game, where the Cowboys have been one of the worst run defenses in the league, especially if you put bigger bodies on the field, you put tight ends on the field, are they going to match with base? And if they match with base, guess what else they're one of the worst teams at? Defending the middle of the field in base defense. So it's kind of a pick your poison situation for Dallas on defense. Do we load up against the run and give up and just allow Jared Goff to pepper the middle of the field? Or do we load up against the pass and just allow them to run it down our throats? And I don't know what you go with. Do you go with the slow death? Do you go with the explosive death? I don't know, but either way, you're facing death. And the only way to keep up with this is Dak Prescott has to have a masterclass game against a defense that we've been talking about it all year, that tries to play in a style that typically gives Dallas problems. And that's playing a lot of tight man-to-man coverage, a lot of cover one. That's what I think Detroit is going to try to do. And if they're able to do it effectively, I think this will be a blowout. I don't think it's going to come down to a play where offensive lineman is ineligible or not.
Yeah, it very well could. I mean, you look at that, who Dak Prescott is throwing the football to, Diante, and I do think it's a good look at this Lions defense. I mean, they tried to remake their entire secondary in the offseason. Terry and Arnold has had penalty issues so far. Carlton Davis has been a little bit up and down. It looks like they're getting Brian Branch back for this game, but is this Lions defense significantly better than last season? I don't think anybody watching them so far would say, yeah, that's the case. I mean, they look like a similar group with different people back there, but in this game last year, Dak Prescott threw for 345 yards and CeeDee Lamb had 13 catches for 227 yards in that game. It actually wasn't the most efficient game for the Cowboys offense, but they were just hitting explosive after explosive against this Lions defense. And I just don't know, Diante, if you told me those numbers, they're going to replicate those numbers in this game, I wouldn't say you're crazy. I'm not at another level of confidence with this Lions defense against this Cowboys passing attack.
I'm not either. And I think if you're going to be an optimist on Dallas's behalf, you look back at the Sunday night football game last week and you say, hey, Pittsburgh, another team that likes to play a lot of tight coverage with their pass rushers available, and Dak Prescott threw for over 350 yards, right? The issue there is, because of the way that Dak likes to play, you're probably going to get the ball in harm's way the way that you saw on Sunday night, right? There's going to be some tight window throws where if it's on a back shoulder instead of a front shoulder, now it gets tipped and it turns into an interception. Or if there's a miscommunication like we saw in the red zone where he's trying to throw back shoulder and your receiver is running to the back pylon of the end zone, you get an interception in those scenarios. So to me, I think that this is less a test of Dak Prescott because I think we know how he likes to play, and more a test of whether or not Jalen Tolbert and Jake Ferguson and Kavontae Turpin can replicate some of their production that we saw last Sunday night. Because if they're not able to do so, and this is where Detroit is interesting because they kind of run hot and cold on a down-to-down basis with how well they execute all the tight coverage we know that they want to play. If Amik Robertson is there and he's playing tight coverage, now it gets even tighter, right? Because that means that if CD's not available, you have even less to go to in the slot, right? And I think if the pass rush is there, now you're really putting a lot of strain on Dak Prescott. But I think if you're that offensive staff, it feels reductive, but I think that ultimately what this comes down to is wide receivers winning. And I think that for me, maybe that's where my apprehension is because we just have not seen this wide receiver core outside of CeeDee Lamb win against tight press coverage often enough to feel like they can go play Detroit and produce on a down-to-down basis.
Just to put this into context, like how Dallas has kind of struggled against man coverage. This is Dak Prescott over the last 4 years against cover one. He has negative 14.6 EPA, total EPA, 6.9 yards per dropback, minus 0.29 EPA per dropback, a 39% success rate, and an interception rate over 4%. That's like double his career rate. So if Detroit can execute their game plan, like this is typically when we see this Cowboys pass game struggle, especially under Mike McCarthy. And I think like at the end of the day, like we could talk about the receivers and the quarterback, but I think it's on the coaching staff to kind of help these guys out and get them open if they don't have the talent to get open themselves.
Yeah, because you look at those names as Diante was, reeling off those names behind CeeDee Lamb. I'm kind of like, maybe you draw a DPI or something. But, Jalen Tolbert had a nice touchdown last week, and Jake Ferguson is a, semi-reliable tight end, but there's not a lot there. Like when you were saying that, it's like, man, if they're one CeeDee Lamb injury, if CeeDee Lamb misses like a month this season, what does that team's just going to go in the tank? I mean, they really don't have I looked at them going into the season. I was like, they can win in different ways because I thought their defense was going to be good. Their defense hasn't been as good and they've had injuries. They can basically win one way. Dak Prescott and this passing game, they have to be efficient, awesome, and mostly mistake-free. I know they overcame the mistakes last week, but if they're facing a better offense, you can't, if you have those turnovers, the game's over. And so it's just, it's a very sort of tough way to live. I feel like he's thrown over 24% of his passes have been into tight windows this season. Top two, second in the entire NFL so far this year. So Lions have a team that wants to play man coverage for tight throws. And this is a guy who's going to let those rip, but do they have enough playmakers other than CeeDee Lamb? So be a fun one. Good measuring stick for the Lions defense. It's kind of like what do we have with this Cowboys team? Like, I don't think I'll panic if the Lions lose. It'll be like, all right, they're okay. If the Cowboys get blown out here, it'll really speak to what, Ruiz was saying on the Sunday night show that no, we do not need to take this team seriously this season. They're the same team we thought they were. All right. We take a break. We come back and then we go to the most drama-filled team in the NFL. I mean, seriously, New York Jets just dominating the news cycle this week. We'll get to that Monday night game. They host the Buffalo Bills. All right, we're back on the Ringer NFL show. Ruiz, this one goes to you. We did a whole pod. Nora was on with me earlier in the week when Robert Saleh got fired there by the Jets. So I've given a lot of my takes out on it. I want to hear what you guys think. But since then, we've even had some more news with the Jets. So where are you going with this Bills-Jets matchup?
Well, I wanted to start on the other side of the ball. I know that's probably a dumb place to start content-wise, just because of the turmoil.
Cut off his mic. What is he talking? He's not going to start give us a Nathaniel Hackett, Aaron Rodgers, Todd Downing. No, we can get back to that side of the ball. Go ahead.
The Jets offense stinks. That's my take on the matter. It stinks, and until they get Devontae Adams, I don't care. I'm not interested in watching them play. I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers throw 5-yard routes against blitzes every down. But no, I wanted to talk about the Bills offense because it's kind of in a weird situation where the last 2 weeks they haven't played well, but the overall numbers look good. It kind of feels like last year where they were like third in EPA in basically every facet of offense, but the vibes were just off. And I feel like we're in a similar situation. They're fourth in EPA per play this year, but on first down, they're 23rd and they're 28th in yards per play. They're 25th in explosive play rate. They have the 26th highest ADOT. So Josh Allen is throwing only 6 yards downfield on average per play on first down. And I think one of the reasons why they've been so bad on first down and why we haven't seen them kind of take off over the last 2 weeks is because they're not really pushing the ball downfield on first down. They're kind of reining Josh Allen in. They're throwing a lot of bubble screens. When they do pass, it's mostly RPO. They have the 29th highest pass rate in the NFL on first down. So on first down, they are a run first team. They're going to get under center. They're going to run James Cook, or they're going to throw a bubble screen if you load the box. But then on second down, the numbers just explode. Like they're one of the best teams on second down. Josh Allen is second in ADOT on second down. He's throwing the ball downfield. They're getting explosive plays. So my prescription for fixing this offense over the last couple of weeks is just do the second down things on first down. Like let Josh Allen be Josh Allen on first down. And maybe, just maybe, you'll get more explosives and you won't have to worry about getting in third and long, where they're one of the worst teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah, it was when you were describing the ADOT, I was thinking of their last. I'm sure Bills fans were like, "Well, yeah, what about that last possession last week? All we did was chuck it downfield 20 yards when all we needed to do was pick up a first down." Yeah, they've been up and down. You know, we talked about this before, where it felt like early on we were having conversations on this podcast that, hey, stuff feels in structure, stuff feels schemed up nicely. He doesn't have to put the cape on and be Superman. And then these last 2 weeks have been a different story. Last week specifically, I mean, those passing numbers, 9 for 30 in that game against the Houston Texans, and nothing was coming easy. And they were down Khalil Shakir, but they weren't down 4 different starters on their offense. So I am curious to see what is the real version of this offense. You mentioned the first down stuff, the second down stuff. It's always like with the Bills, that delicate balance of Josh Allen creating versus, hey, help him out and let's give him some of those easy throws. So typically they've been a good running team, but James Cook, I know, wasn't practicing, I believe, on Thursday, so they might not have him for this game. Diante, what's your sort of confidence level in this Bills offense now that we've seen what it looks like without Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis in kind of a new cast of characters for 5 games?
I say it's probably still like a 7 to 7.5, right? Because you have Josh Allen. I'm just with Steven. I think that they need to change their early down splits. And this was something it worked out just fine for them the first 3 weeks. And I think that the last 2 games, as you see higher quality of defenses that are more willing to sell out to stop whatever your biggest tendencies are on early downs, now you're putting your all-world quarterback really behind the 8 ball. And it's an interesting thing to me, because when you look at some of their EPA and success rate metrics on first down, it would suggest, similar to how we talk about Houston, that this is a team that just needs to pass more often on early downs. Mm-hmm. I think if they inverted some of their tendencies on first and second down, we would avoid those 3rd and 11s. We would avoid those 3rd and 9s that we've seen in the last 2 weeks against Baltimore and Houston, where Josh Allen has to get into creation mode, and now teams can pin their ears back. So to me, I'm still confident. I don't know exactly where the game-breaking production is going to come from this receiving core. I think that we spent a lot of the summer talking about, hey, big year for Khalil Shakir. And maybe when he's healthy and back available, we'll see them be able to stretch the field a little bit more. But another name that we brought up in that process was Dalton Kincaid. And I think that we're just looking at an offense that's really just not properly equipped to make the most out of his skill set. And it's entirely possible that he's just not enough of a difference maker right now as a flex tight end type of guy for them to be able to rely on him the way that you would need to. And I think that Keon Coleman has been kind of hot and cold as well. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to stretch the field for you as much as be a ball winner. So they just got a lot of guys that have interesting roles that don't really lend themselves towards them being explosive in the way that you would need to be on third down if you wanted to operate the way that Buffalo has been operating so far this year. So if they're just a little bit more willing to get into the drop back world and understanding that that's a higher degree of difficulty to live in, I just think that that's how you've got to live until you figure out exactly who's going to be your go-to guy in these high leverage situations.
Yeah, one of the issues, if they don't get like the first down play calling right, the Jets have the best first down defense in the NFL this year. Like they are just dominating and hammering offenses on first down. And that includes that first game against San Francisco where they had all the problems in the world against that Shanahan offense. They're still the best statistically. And one area where I found Buffalo is kind of lacking compared to last year, it's the deeper throws over the middle of the field. Josh Allen just has 9 attempts over 15 air yards in between the numbers. He's averaging 1.8 attempts of those attempts per game. Last year, he was at 4.5. So 3 times higher than he has this year. And that's like the area of the field where NFL offenses thrive. Like that's the most fertile ground for passing games is that middle of the field. And they're just not accessing it right now. And I think part of it is because you usually see teams access that part of the field on first down, off play action, getting those defenses to come up to the line of scrimmage. And it's just not happening. And they're not really attempting to hit those areas of the field at the moment. Everything deep has been outside. And Josh Allen only has like 4 or 5 completions over 20 air yards. This is Josh Allen we're talking about. You're not getting the most out of Josh Allen if you're not throwing it over the middle of the field and down the field.
It could be also to this be a little bit of, Joe Brady. What's the best way to keep your job is to keep your boss happy. And what does Sean McDermott want to do? What are those conversations like? Hey, let's not get, we don't need to get too pass happy here. We don't need to turn the football over, that kind of thing. Cause they've sort of had different, splits depending on the season and who's calling plays. And sometimes the numbers are really good and they're the most pass heavy team in the NFL, but they're not winning and maybe they want to play a different way. So I think there's a lot of factors at work there. I also think I just want a bigger sample with this group. I want to be looking at all this after Thanksgiving because there are just so many new pieces to this Buffalo Bills offense that you were mentioning Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman. It's how are these guys going to develop and grow? What are their roles going to be? And what's it going to look like down the road here? Because I still think there's obvious potential there when Josh Allen is your quarterback. And have seen some high highs so far this season, but now they've kind of come back down to earth a little bit, and we'll see what it looks like against this Jets defense.
Yeah. Should we talk about the crappy Jets offense now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not tossing a break or anything until we get to some of this drama here, because we just did the podcast Wednesday. Since then, Jeff Ulbrich takes over. Nathaniel Hackett is stripped of play calling duties. So I don't know what he does. So he could be my first team CTC offensive coordinator because the man he can show up late. He can leave early. And I believe the checks will be still cashing for Nathaniel Hackett where he doesn't have to, worry about it. I'm assuming his key card still works, but now they go to Todd Downing here and it's I don't know. You guys tell me your reaction, and then I'll tell you my reaction. Ruiz, what was your reaction to Nathaniel Hackett is no longer the play caller and Todd Downing is taking over?
I mean, you had to do something because they weren't getting anything out of this play calling, or out of the structure of the offense, especially on early downs. When they went under center, that's kind of how I viewed the offense. The shotgun offense, that was all Aaron Rodgers doing what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. But on early downs, when they're calling the run game from under center and they got their motions going, that's the offensive coordinator. That's Nathaniel Hackett. And that was the worst part of their offense. And that was kind of setting the stage for the rest of their offense and raising the degree of difficulty for Aaron Rodgers, who does not need a higher degree of difficulty right now. There was a time when he could be one of those quarterbacks who can just put a team on his back and carry the offense on his own with his style of play, a la Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, the top quarterbacks in the NFL. Clearly, that's not the case any longer. And I don't know. I don't know what Todd Downing does. Maybe he improves the run game. And if he does, I think that does. It's like a little domino that you're setting off that kind of helps out the rest of the pass game. But Todd Downing hasn't been a good offensive coordinator when he's gotten the job in the past. In Tennessee.
Important detail, yes.
Yeah, and I believe in Oakland. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect. But the results from Downing's career haven't been good, but it's been a while since he's been an offensive coordinator. Maybe he's improved. Maybe he's learned lessons. Maybe he'll be better. Who knows? But something has to change because the first down offense stinks.
Just to me, Diante, and where I was going with it is just I don't know. Aren't they doing what Aaron Rodgers wants them to do? Is it not that simple? Is Todd Downing going to go in there and say we're changing X, Y, and Z, because this is going to, like, is there anyone in the building that is going to convince the quarterback at this stage of his career, these things can help you, this will lead to a more efficient offense? Maybe there is. Maybe that guy just wasn't Nathaniel Hackett, but I'm in like believe it when I see it mode when it comes to that. I mean, I just have a hard time believing that this is like, a coach is going to come in and they're going to be doing things differently and doing things specifically that might make Aaron Rodgers a little bit uncomfortable, or just that he doesn't feel like doing at this stage of his career, whatever his health issues are. He's dealing with a couple injuries. So that's why I laughed at the move. Like, you're right. I mean, Ruiz is right. You really can't do worse than Nathaniel Hackett. I agree with that. This certainly isn't going to make them worse. I'm just pretty skeptical that this is going to make them, meaningfully better in any way.
No, I'm with you. I think Steven hit the nail on the head when he, after giving his spiel on Downing, he gets halfway through and says, actually, this is just not a guy who's been a good coach. He has not demonstrated any ability to run a high-level NFL offense. I think to your point, Sheil, I think that this just happened to be a change that just needed to be made. Right. Like, I just think that it was clear that as long as Hackett was the guy who had his hands on the wheel, that they weren't going to get this issue fixed. My thing is, like, where are the answers going to come from? Because the things that are plaguing this offense all seem to be happening when they're doing the things that are supposed to make Aaron Rodgers most comfortable. Playing more, in the spread, letting him operate from the shotgun and control things from the line of scrimmage, him trying to check out every play and get the ball out quickly to Garrett Wilson or to wide receivers underneath. Those are all stamps of Aaron Rodgers' games and have been that way since he was coached by Mike McCarthy. So what about that would be different now? That, to me, I think is the biggest issue. I don't exactly understand what the dynamics are right now between Downing.
I don't think anybody does. I don't think in the building. I don't think Rodgers does. I don't think anybody knows what any of the dynamics. It's week 5. It's week 5, and they have fired their coach and made an offensive coordinator change after a 2-3 start. I mean, what is happening here?
Whether or not this is going to make them any better, right? And I think that this just speaks to, I think, just kind of how much they've just been kind of adrift, I guess, over the first month or so of this season. Because the central issue here is just the fact that Aaron Rodgers has not been good at the things that make Aaron Rodgers a unique quarterback in this league. And I don't think that there's anything Todd Downing can do outside of taking, the old Kevin Stefanski, Arthur Smith, Minnesota offense and just saying, hey, we're going 12 personnel and half of our passes are going to be play actions and you just got to throw these dig routes. And we know that that's not how Aaron Rodgers wants to operate. So I don't want to offer that as an answer when we know that the guy who seems to have the most sway over how this offense is called is not going to be receptive to changing his style of play.
Yeah, if you watch them like run play action from under center, like it's like Aaron Rodgers is protesting the call by not like half-assing the fake handoff. Like he barely even like stretches his arm out anymore. He's just like, and then like the defenses don't react. The linebackers aren't reacting. It's not effective. So I don't know. I think it might be Rodgers that's kind of holding this team back. And maybe Rodgers in a weird way was holding Nathaniel Hackett back.
No, I'm not going that far. The offense would have looked
better if this guy was committed to it. No, I'm joking.
Yeah,
of course.
Let Steven stand on that island.
No. But when you look at like their splits and you look at like what they do well, it is I mean, relatively, like compared to the rest of the league, they're really mediocre at this. But it is the Aaron Rodgers stuff. It's getting in the spread and passing without play action. But like I said, they're mediocre at it, and that doesn't make up for being terrible at everything else they do. And there was a time when Aaron Rodgers was like elite at that stuff, and now he's just mediocre. And I think that's the difference. Like that's the difference between an elite quarterback, the elite version of Aaron Rodgers, and this version we have now, who's, what is he, like the 12th best quarterback in the NFL, 12th to 15th? I don't know. And that's generous, possibly.
That might be generous right now.
But the question I have in this one, like they've had issues picking up the blitz. And last week, Minnesota just ran the same blitz over and over again. And Aaron Rodgers didn't change anything. The Jets didn't change anything. Harrison Smith was just unblocked, had an unblocked path to him on a bunch of downs. But Buffalo doesn't blitz at all. They're like the least blitz happy team in the NFL. I think they're 32nd in blitz rate. So I do wonder, what does Buffalo do in this game? Do they do what the other teams have been doing and finding success with? Or do they kind of drop back and play their typical style of defense? If that's the case, I think maybe the Jets have a better chance than they would if the Bills do try to replicate what Minnesota and Denver had success with.
Well, do they get the interim coach bump? I mean, that really is the big question here. You switch coaches middle of the season, you get the one game right after that. Your team plays well, they win, and then they generally revert back and go in the tank after that. But yeah, Todd Downing, you were mentioning 2021 and 2022 with the Titans. They finished 25th in success rate and 22nd in EPA per drive over that 2-year span. And remember, that was an offense that with Arthur Smith, they were top 5, top 6 in the NFL. I mean, at that point with Tannehill and Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, that offense was really working. It didn't work. And they had some injury stuff. I don't want to make it seem like those guys were healthy the entire time, but it was a below average offense by any metric. He got a DUI in November of that second season, I think, after a win. And now you're handing the reins over to him for this Jets offense. I mean, it's hard for me to, I'm not, again, I've said before, I don't mind the Jets. Like, I feel for the Jets, they get piled on. So I'm piling on the Jets. I'm not piling on the Jets fans. I'm sorry. Your owner is rabbit-eared. It feels like to me. And it's like, we got to do X, Y, and Z when we get some of this criticism. So,
bring Diante in, though. Diante solves like 70% of their problems on offense. Just bring him in. And then I'll be listening.
Yeah, we discussed that if you're going to run this offense, it just feels like quarterback wide receiver chemistry and being on the same page is more important to this offense the way it's run right now than maybe any other offense in the NFL. Like if you told me they were bringing in a wide receiver who was good as Davante Adams, who had never played with Aaron Rodgers before, I would say terrible idea. It's not going to work. You can't incorporate it in the middle of the season. But the fact that they've had all those reps together, maybe they get desperate and go ahead and do it.
Allen Lazard is the trust receiver right now in the offense. That is bad news. We need to fix that right now.
Yeah. So Monday night is a good Monday nighter for content. Bills at Jets. Jets are 2.5-point underdogs at home in that game. All right, take a break. We come back and we start making some picks. Listen, are we about to take over the Ringer Wise Guys pregame show? I don't know. We're just going to tell you what the results are, and you can tell us, what moves might be made at the company. All right, we're back on the Ringer NFL show. All right, so we make picks every week. It's got to be minus 120 or better. We keep it simple. Those are the odds that your pick has to fit into. Whoever is in last place gets assigned the slop game of the week. That means that Sunday, you have to watch a game that the other two hosts do not want to watch, and they get to pick it for you. And you have to come to the table on the Sunday night show with some type of take from that game. So, listen, we had a nice week last week. We go a combined 7-2 among the three of us. I had a 3-0 week after many down weeks in a row. Ruiz and Diante both go 2-1, but Diante had the better odds. That's the tiebreaker on his pick. And so, Diante, what game are we giving Ruiz? Do you remember what we're giving him? We're going to a game that he said he had a comment that there was a specific quarterback. What did you say, Ruiz? That he was built in a lab to make you upset? What was the exact phrase?
Yeah, he was like designing a lab for me not to enjoy his style of play. I have nothing against the guy we're talking about. I'm just strictly saying his style of football, his approach to football, I vehemently disagree with.
Okay.
And I don't think there's a place for it in football.
It's not honorable.
No.
Yeah, no, his slop game of the week is Las Vegas playing up against Pittsburgh in the late afternoon slate. And Aiden O'Connell was the guy that he said was specifically built in the lab to give him much distress while watching at the quarterback position.
I once accidentally DM'd Pablo Torre a clip of Aiden O'Connell like completing a play action pass over the middle, and the message was like, "This is the pass that sustains every system quarterback in the NFL." Pablo had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, "Oh, sorry. I did not mean to send that to you."
Listen, among accidental DMs, that one sounds relatively harmless. A clip.
I disagree. Sending Aiden O'Connell unsolicited.
That's as bad as it gets. You're
I should go to jail.
The fact that you're not blocked for that, I think, speaks well to Pablo's benevolence.
Pablo found out.
Pablo found out. Yeah, we might have stumbled into a segment there with like when we were just describing quarterback built in a lab to make Ruiz upset. I'm sure there were listeners just yelling out names to themselves about who they thought that would be. I don't know. There might be something there with that type of description in the future. Quarterback who blank, Ruiz blank, and then listeners go ahead and guess something like that there. But all right, so Ruiz is going to watch Raiders, Steelers for us on the season. I'm 8-7. Ruiz and Diante are 9-6 as a group, 26-19. I'm just saying, listen, JJ, Raheem, House, Tony Buns, just listen, if it doesn't work out, just know that the Ringer might have some bullpen arms warming up here for the Ringer Wise guys on Sunday morning. All right, let's see if we can keep that going this week. We're each going to make our picks. I'm doing what I did last week. I didn't pick out my actual three. I have a group that I'm choosing from. I got to see what I'm feeling when it's my turn. So I'm going to go third for the first round while I look at those. Ruiz, start us off. What's your first pick?
All right, I'm going to go longest reception for A.J. Brown over 25.5. And my theory on this is a simple one. They're playing the team that plays the most man coverage in the NFL. When the Eagles were at their best in 2022, they were seeing a lot of cover one, and they were just throwing the ball deep outside the numbers to those two receivers. And A.J. Brown is typically the guy that comes down with those passes. And honestly, I think that would be the best approach to this offense outside of the run game with Saquon Barkley. Just keep it simple for Jalen Hurts. And when he has those talented receivers out there, I think it's easier to keep it simple for him. If they don't throw A.J. Brown like at least 3 deep balls in this game, I will be very disappointed. I will be questioning Kellen Moore's game plan on Sunday night. But I think if they give him opportunities, A.J. Brown is going to catch one of those and come down with it and have a deeper reception. My other pick from this game was Dallas Goedert over 3.5 receptions. He's kind of been one of Jalen Hurts' answers against man coverage. So I would take that one too from this game.
So are both of those official picks for you or just the A.J. Brown? Okay, but you like the Goddard one.
Yeah, it's a bonus one.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it. And Denzel Ward has a hamstring injury. He has not practiced for the Browns so far this week. And for the Eagles, it could be as simple as, we talked all preseason about Kellen Moore and the changes they're going to make. So far, since week 1, the 2024 offense looks a lot like the 2023 offense. And so you have to look at quarterback preferences and some of this is guys have been injured, but Jalen Hurts is throwing to the middle of the field less than he did last year when he was last in the NFL. So that's got to be looked at by the quarterback. The under center play action stuff, they're barely mixing it in. They're still bottom 3 in the NFL in doing that stuff. The only thing that's really changed has been the motion, and the motion looked good in week 1. Since then, there's been a little bit of the old motion for motion's sake with this offense. Now they get back Lane Johnson, right tackle, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. So to Ruiz's point, I always thought that sets a pretty high floor, Diante, that if you are just throwing it up to whoever's got the best matchup among those guys, and now you've got Saquon Barkley, that type of offense on most weeks is going to be, still look pretty good.
I'm with you on that. And I think that if we're going to look at something positively with Kellen Moore, I didn't know if I ever was 100% bought in on this offense being transformational as much as it was just streamlining. Right. And providing better offenses within the infrastructure that already existed, because we saw in 2022, this offense was just fine. They happened to run into some schematic issues last season, but we know that just the matchup issue alone that A.J. Brown is singularly changes the way that you play defense against them. When Jalen Hurts is available as a runner, and I will say if there's something that I have my eye on, it's the fact that he just doesn't look the same as a runner anymore. But just having him as part of the option game changes the way that you get defended. And the thing that they have now that I think makes it even more viable to play the one-on-one ball that they've been playing when these guys are all healthy is the fact that Saquon Barkley is a creator out of the backfield that they have not had for as long as Jalen Hurts has been the starter. This is something I noted in power rankings. I think we've talked about this in the times that we've covered the Eagles. I do think that we should maybe have a conversation less about what this offense is doing for Jalen Hurts and what this offense can do to remove him as a decision maker especially on early downs. I think the more you can lean on the RPO game to get the ball out to Devontae Smith quickly or Dallas Goedert quickly, using the play action game when you can, or the design shot game when you get those opportunities to give the ball to A.J. Brown on early downs. That's about the extent that I think we need to see Jalen Hurts passing attempts. Everything else to me, I think should be about leaning on Saquon Barkley. And I think trying to create those heavy boxes so that way you can push the ball downfield, because that's where this thing is at its best.
I think like what they've lost in the run game, obviously like Saquon Barkley has brought a lot to the run game, but having Kelsey, like I think we said this in the offseason, this is like one of the most underrated storylines of the offseason is they're losing this focal point of their offense, this unique focal point. Like we didn't see another offense in the league that was built around the center. And right. I don't know if I've ever seen that in my time watching the NFL. And not having him be able to pull outside the numbers has made that run game a lot easier to defend, because now your guy outside of the tackles is Jalen Hurts, who we've covered isn't fast enough to really take advantage of those looks. So like, I don't know. I think part of the goal for Kellen Moore over the rest of the season should be figuring out how to get Saquon Barkley on those touches outside of the tackles and have him be the explosive guy. And like Diante said, but in a different way, remove kind of Jalen Hurts' decision-making there. Because if you're relying on Jalen Hurts to kind of read the defensive end and decide if he can beat him to the corner, we've seen how that's worked. Like the zone read has just been terrible for them, maybe going back to last year when it's not a give.
Yeah, he can't get to the edge. I mean, you were talking about Jayden Daniels earlier, and it's just like anytime there has been one of those plays, the zone read where he's keeping it and trying to get to the edge, that has led to maximum of like a 2-yard gain. And oftentimes he's sliding behind the line of scrimmage or something like that, that he can still be effective, I think, on the power runs, stuff QB draw, stuff up the middle. But when it's him versus a defender on the edge, that looked ugly last season. We thought it was injury. Now this season, through 5 games, it's looked the same as it looked last year when we thought he was dealing with the knee injury. So Eagles are big favorites and 9.5-point favorites in this game for a team that just got blown out by the Tampa Bay Bucks 2 weeks ago. Again, they're healthier, but that is a big, big number. We'll see what happens in that early game in Philly. That's going to be an angry crowd with the way the Philly season just ended. Oh man, if they get down early in that game, I can just feel it in my bones. Yeah, I can feel it in my bones what that environment is going to be. If Deshaun Watson comes out and starts completing passes again with the way Browns offense has been playing, I shouldn't say an angry. It's always an angry. It's going to be an especially angry crowd. I forgot a word in there. All right, Ruiz has. I like that. AJ Brown. I was looking at his overs. Yeah, I think he's going to get a lot of targets in this game, but you're going with longest reception. What was the number? 25
and a half.
25 and a half over. All right, Diante, what do you got?
So I am going with the rookie who's getting his first start this season, Drake May. I am betting the under of 18 and a half completions at -108.
Oh, you got mine. All right, I'm moving on to another. I love it. All right, go ahead.
I have a Drake May one too, but it's a different one.
I think that we will leave Sunday probably feeling like, okay, the rookie will probably be fine. I think that this is probably about as bad a quarterback versus defensive coordinator matchup you could be getting in your debut. And B, if you're looking at what Houston has played like on the perimeter, healthy Derek Stingley, I think Kamari Lassiter has been much better than even I expected. And I was one of the guys who thought that he could be something early in his career. Having Jalen Petrie in the slot, like you look at this secondary and there is a lot of speed and versatility and aggression there that I think sets itself up perfectly to play up against a Patriots passing game that we really just haven't seen put much stress on any defense up to this point. I think Drake May will be a little bit more willing to take a few hits to try to push the ball downfield. I would just say that this is a bad week for that because we've seen that Houston has reliably put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, high-level quarterbacks throughout this season up to this point. So I just don't like this matchup schematically behind that offensive line for Drake May. I think he'll be fine, but I do expect under the 18 and a half completion line they have for this game.
Opposing quarterbacks against the Houston Texans this year are completing 51.7% of their passes. Obviously, last week it was 9 for 30, but that was Josh Allen. That wasn't some guy that was just signed off the street to start that game. So you got that. And honestly, if you're a Patriots fan, like that's this. I don't want him. You don't want him just dropping back, 38 times and taking hits. Like it's okay. This is sort of an ease in type situation. Don't ruin your young quarterback. Let him get some reps. Let him see some stuff. Let him make 4 or 5 plays during the game that you can point to on Monday and Tuesday of next week. Say, nice job here. Let's do more of this. Let's do less of that type of thing. So this guy, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this Patriots coaching staff for this game. Like, you need to handle this situation in the proper way. You decided to make the move. Was that ownership who decided to make the move? Was it the coaches who decided to make the move? Who knows? But now that you made I'm fine with making the move. He's got to play it at some point. It's not a great situation. I understand it's not perfect. You changed your mind, but at the same time, do this in a smart way that gives the guy a chance to succeed. Ruiz, you were about to say something.
Yeah, my other pick is from this game as well, and it's based on the notion that the Patriots offense won't be providing those guardrails and that type of help for Drake May. I'm going over on 24.5 rushing yards for Drake May. I think he's going to be running for his life, and I think his response to that pressure is going to be scrambling, because I don't think the Patriots have playmakers outside of structure that are going to help him make plays in those situations. And he was 21st in the nation last year in terms of scramble rate against pressure. So he's willing to scramble against the Jets. I know it was only 5 dropbacks or 5 pressure dropbacks. He scrambled twice. So 40% of his pressure dropbacks ended in scrambles. I'm just expecting him to scramble maybe 5 times this game. And he's athletic enough where he could turn one of those into a 15, 20-yard gain and beat this number in 1 or 2 carries. But I am not expecting this to be a pretty sight for Drake May. This is what I want to see from him for the season. I just want to see him beat the Sam Darnold allegations. And I'm talking about Sam Darnold in the Jets when he's playing with a similar supporting cast. He doesn't really have help from the offensive line. He's not getting help from the receiving core. And that means just under 3.5% interception rate, under 9% sack rate. And then give me a time to throw of 3.1. Don't be holding on to the ball like Justin Fields levels. I just want him to get rid of the ball, avoid sacks, avoid boneheaded interceptions, and then sprinkle in a few splash plays. Is that too much to ask?
I think not throwing the boneheaded interceptions might be too much to ask, just because, I don't know, that usually happens with rookie quarterbacks. So I think you'll see some boneheaded interceptions.
It's not too many.
Not too many. Okay. Yeah. You're allowed a couple there. I think it's a great call with this. I mean, all young quarterbacks, when it's they don't know what's happening, and you're athletic, and he played behind a bad offensive line, right? At North Carolina. This isn't a new thing for him. So you can get into kind of playmaker mode, just protect yourself a little bit there. So I'm excited to watch it. I want to see what it looks like anytime a rookie quarterback, a high draft pick, gets in the football game like this for the first time. It's fun to watch. So we'll see what happens in that Patriots-Texans game. All right. Let's see. All right. So I had the exact one, Diante. That's where I was going. So I'm not going to go with that one. I'm going to go to a game that we definitely should talk about. And let's go to Lambeau Field, where the Arizona Cardinals go to Green Bay to take on the Green Bay Packers. 2 teams that I'm still not sure exactly what I think about with these two. That Packers defense, I'm not a believer in that Packers defense. And so that's where my pick comes in here. I'm going Cardinals team total over 20.5 points. So I think the Cardinals should be able to move the football against this Packers defense. I think most offenses have been able to do that. And I also think there's a chance that the Packers are putting up a lot of points, and you have to kind of keep up and be aggressive. The Packers offense so far this season has been it's they're hitting explosives. It hasn't been the most reliable series to series, down to down type offense. And maybe that's kind of how they're going to play, but I expect a little more of that this season. So I'm not sure what to expect here, but I think the Cardinals are going to be able to put up points against the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I feel like the Packers offense is off to a weird start, but it's kind of circumstances. They had to play Malik Willis, which kind of changes how you play offense.
Yeah.
And then we've seen Jordan Love come back, but also he's coming back and still nursing a knee injury. He's still in the first game, you could tell that it was affecting him in the pocket, especially. Yeah. I think,
but also in YOLO mode while he's nursing the knee injury.
Exactly.
Yeah, that knee injury, that stops absolutely nothing.
He's going to throw that ball downfield no matter what, even if it's to the other team. But no, I think we're going to see what we saw last year, where there's those initial growing pains. We have to remember, this is still a very young offense. And this receiving core is still very young. And you could see the mistakes. You could see the drops, specifically from Wicks. You could see the YOLO balls from Jordan Love. But you also see the high-level play still. especially from Jordan Love. Like, he's still making amazing throws. He's still avoiding pressure, avoiding sacks when he's under pressure and getting throws off downfield. I think once they start to, trim the fat from the offense and kind of figure out what they do best and get acclimated to what they do best, I think this is going to be one of the top offenses again, like we saw over the second half of last year. But we're not at that point yet. So I'm with you. I don't really trust this team just yet. I know your concerns are more about the defense, but I think because of the high variance offense we've seen so far, that I don't know if I trust either side of the ball in this one. But I still expect them to win because I think they have the better coaching staff.
Yeah,
I like this pick for you, Sheil, because I think the one thing that Green Bay has really relied on are some high variance things that I think if you look at, over a longer stretch of sample size, will probably start to even out, right? Like, this team is gained the most third most defensive EPA on sacks. But if you look at their pressure numbers and their quarterback hits, it does not match up. They're about like in that 16 and 19 range. So you've got to imagine if they don't get any timely sacks, don't get strip sacks, there's going to be opportunity for Arizona to get after them. I've talked about this. When they have Malik Willis in, those games are really won because they were getting a lot of interceptions. And right now we're not exactly sure of what Jair Alexander's participation is going to be by Sunday, but I know he's been a limited participant in both practices this week. And if they don't have their number one corner and they're not able to get home, we've seen that Arizona wants to push the ball down the field. And if you give Kyler Murray an opportunity to do so, he's going to take those chances. And we know that he's been trying to connect with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that this will probably be a good game for him to get the clean pockets he needs to get in order to really push the ball down the field and spread the love across multiple receivers.
Yeah, I didn't know that about that's an interesting sack number because I thought you were going with another one their turnovers. Their defense has the second highest DPA on turnovers. Maybe Xavier McKinney will just have an interception every single game for the entire season, but I don't know that you can count on that. So yeah, those are like the red flag things that I look at. Like, wait a minute, you're not exactly playing solid, sound, stopping this team. It's good. You're opportunistic. And I know turnovers are a part of the game, but how long can you count on that if you're playing a better team? So that's why I don't fully trust them. And Ruiz, you were talking about the Packers offense. I feel like this, have you guys followed this Romeo Doubs story? I feel like it kind of went under the radar a little bit. I mean, I was just getting caught up today prepping for the pod. So he doesn't show up to practice last week on Thursday and Friday. There's a Sports Illustrated report that he was unhappy with his role in the offense. The team suspends him for the game last weekend. Like, Brian Gutekunst, put out a statement about it. And now he's back with the team this week. But I was reading The Athletic had a story about it, and it still seems a little like, it doesn't seem like everything's fine. And it was just some weird thing that happened. So that's something to keep an eye on, because that was the story with the Packers last year. It was like, oh, they got all these young guys growing together and everyone's happy with the role. And now we're here in week 6. And you mentioned it. Wicks has had some high leverage drops this season. Like, I would wonder what Jordan Love's numbers would look like if he came down with some of those. That's one. Watson's injured. And now you got the weird stuff happening with Doubs. So it's sort of I don't know. I'm with you. I think they're going to be good and okay, but it has been a little bit of an unsettling type start for them.
It's a funny thing in terms of verbiage, right? Because Jordan Love was like, I'm not getting into it at all when he's asked about it. And then Christian Watson, like, it's clear that nobody wants to say that he wants the ball more. But there are certain things you can pick up, like from Christian Watson's comments, like, oh, yeah, we're going to get the togetherness and family back in this group. It's like, all right, dude, if a wide receiver doesn't feel very much at home, there's only so many things this could be about. And to your point, I think if he's out on the field, he's had to have been watching on Sunday thinking, man, that could have been my target. That's a play that could have been designed for a Romeo Doubs. And I think that this was something that we talked about, right? Was there's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense coming in. And I think that they found something in Tucker Kraft that they can, reliably lean upon. That's a guy that can create after the catch. That's a guy that can design a lot of the play action game and the drop back game around. And I think that they've just been looking for one other guy that can really work the middle of the field. And I think in theory, a guy like Doubs has the combination of skill sets to be able to stretch the field and work the middle if he were available. So I think that for him, from a timing perspective, I'm sure it probably stinks to look at all these opportunities that you're not seeing, that you're not getting on a week by week basis. I'm just fascinated to see if there is any way that they can resolve this, because he is an asset to them, especially with Watson being in and out of the lineup as often as he has been throughout his career.
And that's where you've kind of seen the drops happen, is over the middle of the field with Wicks, especially like last week. I think he had a third down drop over the middle of the field. But if I'm Matt LaFleur, I'm like, okay, man, we had to come up with a game plan for Malik Willis for half of the games that we play. Like, you expect your target
Ruiz,
share to be high, but we're not
Yeah.
passing the ball. Like, it's not our fault. And then our quarterback had a sprained MCL last week or the week before against the Vikings. And then he sat out against the Rams. Like, give the coaching staff some grace here. I mean, they're trying to rebuild the offense on the fly. I don't know. I'm usually on the side of the players, but not on this one.
Are we all right? Random thought that just popped into my head as this conversation was happening. Are we sure Davante Adams should have just go back to the Packers? You throw him one of your young wide receivers in a pick, and then you bring Davante Adams back in this offense? I don't know. Listen, sometimes if you feel like no one has had that take out there and it pops into your head, you just go out and you just rip the take off and see what happens.
This is not a poor reflection on anybody from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Respectfully, if I got out of Green Bay and went to Vegas, the one thing I am not about to do is turn around and go right back to Green Bay.
It's a few months. Lambeau Field, Jordan Love. Yeah, you don't have to live there the rest of your life, but yeah, he might be enjoy. Yeah, Romeo Doubs has 20 targets on the season. I mean, their leader has 29, and that's with an extra game that Doubs didn't play. So it's
It's not so bad, man. It ain't so bad.
Ruiz, the coach, and Diante has come out during this Doubs conversation.
No,
like,
I'm
come
with
on, give me a break here with this. So, all right, I've got my actual bet was Cardinals over 20.5 points. All right, I think Ruiz has gone twice. Diante, I think you're up with a second one. What do you got?
My next one feels like a pretty easy one. I'm going Kirk Cousins over 252.5 passing yards, because that Panthers pass rush is not going to do anything to make him uncomfortable at all. And while I think that Tampa Bay plays defense in a way that I think lends itself to Kirk Cousins having a good day if they don't get home, I think that what we saw last Thursday night was what he looks like and what this offense looks like when it's on schedule, when it's operating at its best, right? And Kirk Cousins is confident in that plant leg and able to drive the ball in the middle of the field and work the entire field in his progressions. I think that Carolina has been a lot more competitive over the last couple of weeks since making the quarterback change, but there has been a little bit of paper tiger element going on with this defense that I think Cincinnati kind of, started to peel the layers back on. Yeah. And I think another competent offense should really be able to light them up again. So that's what I'm expecting when the Falcons play the Panthers.
Yeah, we mentioned this on the midweek show about on the quarterback segment. That Panthers defense was letting Caleb Williams play on easy mode. It was basically 7-on-7s out there, and if they allow that, I think it's going to be a good showing for Cousins. Who, like, maybe we overreacted to that first week where we're like, oh my God, Kirk Cousins can't move. Like, how are they going to run this offense? Kirk Cousins has never really been able to move. Maybe I should have considered that and factor that in. But we saw him last week. Like, he can operate like Jared Goff. If he just has to, be stationary in the pocket, he can still get the throws off. He's making strong throws down the middle of the field over the second level of the defense. Those are the hardest throws to make. So I'm kind of hopeful for where this offense is going. And I think it's going to be the offense that we expected it to be when we had high hopes in the offseason for this team.
Let's go big on Kirk Cousins. I'm going to go Kirk Cousins also. I was like, he's doing Kirk. Should I go somewhere else? No, I'm sticking with it, but I'm going to do completions. 22.5. Kirk, you don't have to be a hero, 3rd and 8, check the ball down. Live to see another day. Let's just get that over. 22.5 completions. The Panthers are going to give them to you. Like Ruiz mentioned, Caleb Williams had he had 21 completions in that game. You're going to throw the football more than he does. So yeah, I think we're on the same page with let's pick on that Panthers defense a little bit where they don't have anything to really rush the passer. Not a lot to work with. A veteran quarterback like that should be able to complete a lot of passes. So I've got Cousins over 22.5 completions for my second one. All right, Ruiz, close us out. What's your third one?
I'm going to take the under in Chargers Broncos. I've been winning a lot of bets betting against Greg Roman in this offense and taking the unders on him. I'm going to go at it again because I think both of these defenses in this game are like perfectly suited to clamp down on what the other team is trying to do. And the other teams are limited in what they can do, and they're not very good at what they want to do. Well, I guess the Chargers kind of are good at running the ball, but like we say, when you peel back the layers of that run game, it's not really producing what you want out of a run game. It's not setting up.
If you run it 50 times, come on. I can't give you credit for the 120-yard run when you're running.
Right.
I was going to say, I think they've popped a couple explosives. Good running game, I still feel like is maybe a bit of a stretch.
Right. And they're not setting Justin Herbert up for success on second and third down, which is what you want from your run game ultimately. So I just think the Broncos are going to be able to blitz the hell out of them on early downs against the run and on late downs against the pass. Different styles of blitzes, but the same result. And what we know about Greg Roman and his offense is they don't have answers for cover zero. And I think they're going to see a lot of it from a Vance Joseph defense. And even this year, Justin Herbert has not been good against cover zero. That's been the worst coverage he's gone up against this year. So I expect a stinker for the Chargers, and then Bo Nix against this defense from the Chargers that has surprisingly been one of the best in the NFL under Jesse Minter, especially in the drop back pass game and in the run game. They've shut down the run game. So I don't know how Denver moves the ball either. I think this could be like a 20-15 game. So I'm going to take the under 35.5.
I'm going to take my third one is also from this game. I'm going to take a little bit of a different slant. I think the fact that the Chargers -3 is plus odds is 100% lines makers giving the middle finger to Greg Roman and saying, we just don't believe in you at all, because there's absolutely no way why anybody should be confident that Bo Nix in this Denver passing game is going to move the ball on Jesse Minter's defense. And if you look at EPA numbers right now, they're last in total EPA passing the ball. The Broncos are. But they've lost they're like top 5 in EPA lost in sacks, meaning it's not about sacks that is hurting this offense. And they're about middle of the pack in EPA lost on interceptions. So it's not that they're turning the ball over. It's not that they're taking sacks. It's just that they are playing within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage so often that defenses aren't challenged even in high leverage passing situations. And I think that part of that is a function of Sean Payton. Part of that is the way that Bo Nix likes to play. You see that they clearly don't trust him to push the ball downfield more than a handful of times per game. And I think against Jesse Minter's defense and how many different looks he likes to throw at quarterbacks, if you look at all the things that they tried against Mahomes, you can only imagine what changing pictures might do to a rookie quarterback like Bo Nix in an offense as complicated as Sean Payton's. I think that if there is going to be a high turnover game, I think this is a game where he tries to throw a slant and a defensive end is dropping into that window and you get, your Khalil Mack interception or something like that. So I expect the Chargers in an ugly game to win by multiple possessions. So I'm going Chargers -3, which is a plus 100 odds.
He got us with the odds, Ruiz. Now if we tie with him and that one hits, we take the L. I don't know why I haven't learned this at this point. I don't even consider it when I'm going through. I'm just going -120 or better.
System, man.
I know.
I almost picked that one exactly. That was a smart pick by him.
There you go. All right. I want to feel some pain in the morning, feel alive a little bit. And so we're going to go to London, and I'm going to take the under on Trevor Lawrence completions against that Bears defense, 21.5 against that Bears defense, where I know they've got some injuries on the back end, but still, this Jaguars offense has pushed the ball downfield at a very high rate. I mean, he's 4th in average depth of target on his throw. So I don't know that it's going to be a high completion game for them. I also think the Bears might possess the ball for a lot of this game against that Jaguars defense that has not been very good at all. And, this way, if I lose it, I can hate myself before even the early window games start. So it's good to, you spread out the pain a little bit between early window, late window, Sunday night football, Monday night football. That's the way to go. Don't just, feel all the pain all at once. So there you go. That's my last one. We got Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams. I'm going under 21.5 completions for Trevor Lawrence. I'm
going to be honest. If you're rooting against this Jaguars offense, I don't think you're going to be feeling a lot of pain. I think you're going to be happy for most of the game based on how this has gone over the first couple. Although they were good last week. Last week. It was Gus Bradley.
It was the Colts, yes.
But, I don't know. Matt Eberflus isn't all that different, but this is a way better defense, so I could see them struggling. Although Jacksonville has played well in London, but apparently they're having issues with their plane and they're not going to get out there until Friday or Saturday. And the Bears are already out there. So there is that built-in advantage for Chicago because obviously the Jaguars are dealing with a hurricane in their travel plans.
I saw a great football guy quote from Matt Eberflus. I think it was in The Athletic. Anytime the teams go to London, then coaches and players get asked, have you seen the sights and stuff? And they had an off day and he's like, I haven't left this office. I didn't leave the office from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. We were game planning, but I had a great time with the other coaches in here like we do every week. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Like, would it kill you to walk down the street, buddy? Go get some coffee.
And I think they're staying in like the country. It looked beautiful. Like the photos, of the field and stuff. No, he wasn't leaving the compound. Got a game plan for Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. I can tell you what, I'm telling you, Doug Peterson would see the sights. When that flight gets there, he's going to see some sights. He's not going to be hunkered down in his office the entire time.
He's going to see a golf course before. Yeah, he's going to see at least one flag pin before.
At least a driving range. At least a driving range. We don't know during the week, but there you go. All right, let's recap what we got here. I can start us off. I've got Trevor Lawrence under 21.5 completions. I've got Arizona Cardinals over 20.5 total points against the Green Bay Packers. And I've got Kirk Cousins over 22.5 completions against the Carolina Panthers. Diante, what do you got?
I've got Drake May under 18.5 completions. I've got Kirk Cousins over 252 passing yards. And my plus odds for this week is Chargers -3 against the Broncos.
It's like a feature of his picks. It's like he's going to get it sponsored.
It's a bit,
that's
right.
I have AJ Brown longest reception over 25.5. Drake May under 24.5 rush yards and under 35.5 in Chargers Broncos.
There you go. Those are the picks for this week. Who knows if we go 7-2? I'm just saying, you don't know what feed you're going to find us on next week if we keep up this pace. All right. Thank you to Diante Lee and Stephen Ruiz. Thank you to producer Christopher Sutton. Additional production supervision by Conor Nevins, Arjuna Ramgopal, and Dan Comer. We will be back Sunday night. We didn't even hit on Giants-Bengals. Sunday night. What will I be saying if the Bengals lose that game? You can't lose that game, Cincinnati. We'll recap that game, recap all the fun games from Sunday. Enjoy the games. Enjoy the weekend, everyone, and we'll talk to you next time on the Ringer NFL Show.